I've done so much for Israel that I have to read. Look at it. I got like pages. And I don't want to leave anything out. I don't want to leave Golan Heights out. I want to tell you what we did. But it's an honor to help you. I have so many friends, and a lot of you are right in this audience. Very special group of people. You know, for every time we have one of these parties, we have to turn down 10 people for everyone that makes it. It's the White House, the Golan Heights, the rights to the Golan Heights over to Israel. Nobody thought that was possible to get. They've been working on it for 70 years, Mark. 70 years. You know, planes would fly into places that have meetings that would last 2-3 days. All they talked about was the Golan Heights, right, Jason? And nobody ever did anything, but I did it, and we did it quickly. And I say, good luck to you. Then I found out the value of it, trillions of dollars. It could be worth, if you think, trillions of dollars. I said, maybe I should have asked him for something. Miriam gave my campaign, indirectly and directly, $250 million. She was number one. When somebody can give you $250 million, I think that we should give her the opportunity to say hello. But her husband, Sheldon, was an amazing guy, and he'd come up to the office, and there was nobody more aggressive than Sheldon. I think I spent more time with him and you, because you usually came up together, but he'd call and say, can I come over, please? I say, Sheldon, I'm president of the United States. It doesn't work that way anymore. It's like maybe tomorrow. How about tomorrow? No, please, just for a little while. And he'd always say 10 minutes. It turned out to be about an hour and a half, right? And what he did is he fought for Israel. That's all he really fought for. He just wanted to take care of Israel.
Well, so much for that America First stuff. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to not unscheduled, but earlier than normal Rescue Michigan Sunday live stream, not Sunday night this time. I am driving home, driving to see my family for Christmas tonight. So doing this stream early so I can get out the door early. How are you guys all doing? It is almost Christmas. Hard to believe how fast this whole year flew by. We will come back to talking about those clips we just saw in a moment or two. But with the holiday coming up, I thought maybe this week, rather than just going through the usual bad news from the Trump administration, we might also talk about the spiritual direction that the White House is taking us. And I guess to start with, there's been some major developments in the brewing war with Venezuela. So last week, we learned that the U.S. military had seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. And when asked about it, President Trump said, we plan to keep the oil on board. Hey, why not? It's ours, right? And last night, the U.S. just seized another vessel coming from Venezuela, this one owned by China. Hope they don't retaliate. It's becoming clear the United States is enforcing, in fact, Trump just came out and said it, he's enforcing a naval blockade against Venezuela, which is an act of war. The Trump administration made no effort to seek the approval of Congress to do this, although the U.S. House did have a vote to prohibit further military action against Venezuela. And that measure failed by 2 votes. I think it was 211 to 213. That's right. The way Congress approves wars these days is by failing to vote against them. That's apparently how we do it now. The measure to disapprove the military action failed, so I guess the military actions are okay now. Anyway, the bigger story, besides Congress being derelict in its duty to decide whether or not to authorize the use of military force, is the escalation, not only against Venezuela, really all of South America, because as Trump pretty much said in his national security strategy, it's all about we control all of South America. It's our property. We'll do whatever we want with it. And of course, all of their trading partners, including China, including Russia. Make no mistake, this is a blockade. A blockade is an act of war. And there's really no justification for it. But Trump did put out something. So let's see what he said. Let's pull it up here. This is Trump's Truth Social post. Hold on, let me find it here. Is this it? Yeah, here we go. Let me make this bigger so you guys can read it too. Ah, come on. Put it in a new tab. Will this work? All right, there we go. That's a little too big. That's even bigger. Shoot. All right, I'll just read it to you. Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger And the shock to them, like shock and awe, the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before. He loves saying that. Never seen before. Nothing we've ever seen before. Until such time as they return to the United States of America, all of the oil, land, and other assets they previously stole from us. Really. The oil under Venezuela is property of the United States. I mean, there's just no justification at all. It's all ours. We just take it. It's ours. And it's just like Trump had said earlier. Remember when he was talking about Iraq? We should just keep the oil. Why not? It's our property. He says the illegitimate Maduro regime, again, citation needed. Why is it illegitimate? Is using oil from these stolen oil fields on the property of the country of Venezuela. They somehow stole the oil from us to finance themselves, drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. None of which he provides a shred of evidence for the theft of our assets and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. It's just like ticking off buzzwords here. The Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, today I am ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers. And by the way, apparently the vessel they just seized last night was not actually on the sanctions list, but they took it anyway. Tankers going into and out of Venezuela. The illegal aliens and criminals that the Maduro regime has sent into the United States, again, no evidence whatsoever that Maduro had anything to do with sending anyone there, during the week in the Biden administration are being returned to Venezuela at a rapid pace. Really? Isn't Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is, by the way, a Venezuelan national and a member of a designated terrorist organization and certainly a human trafficking gang, still in the U.S. soil, walking free as a bird, giving press conferences? Anyway, America will not allow criminals, terrorists, and other countries to rob, threaten, or harm our nation, and likewise not allow a hostile regime to take our oil, land, just implying we're going to steal land too, all of which must be returned. When was any of this ever ours? To the United States immediately. And as Michael Tracy comments, thankfully, this was all duly authorized by Congress. Proper oversight is being conducted. The mission has been well defined. The objectives are achievable. The cost to taxpayers of assembling the largest armada ever is being carefully tracked. Everything's completely fine. Yeah. So that is what Trump claims is a legal justification for initiating a war with Venezuela. Here's a nice comment from something I never heard of this publication, but it's called The Islander, and this popped up in my feed. This is very well said. A total and complete blockade is not sanctions. It is not pressure. It is not rhetoric. Under international law, it is an act of war. When a U.S. president publicly declares a naval blockade by social media decree, boasting of armadas and asserting entitlement to another nation's oil, minerals, and land, this is not strength on display. It is madness, pure and unwarranted, masquerading as manifest authority. Blockades are not metaphors. They are violence waiting for a trigger. They must be enforced. By the way, how much does that armada cost to sit there, and how long will it be sitting there? At what cost? Enforcement means interception, boarding, seizure, or gunfire. It means captains who hesitate, ships that refuse to stop, moments where a single miscalculation turns doctrine into disaster. History offers no comfort here. Once a blockade is declared, a state either escalates or humiliates itself. There's no stable middle ground, only collision. Yeah, this is where we are now. So what's happened is Trump has, in his wisdom, realized that a ground invasion of Venezuela is a bad idea. But all the military hardware is already out there now. It would look terrible if he just brought it back. So he's now, and apparently whatever the CIA is trying to do to overthrow Maduro hasn't happened yet. So the new tactic clearly is to try to punish and torment the nation of Venezuela until the people overthrow their government somehow, which may not happen at all. It might just totally backfire. But what's he going to do? He's now caught in this escalation trap, which is where Marco Rubio wanted him all along, by the way. This is gunboat diplomacy ripped from the age of empires and dragged screaming into a world that has outgrown it. Blockades are what powers reach for when persuasion fails, legitimacy rots, and law becomes an obstacle rather than a shield. They are not instruments of order. They are confessions, public admissions that the system being defended no longer functions. And it goes on to say this is really about the precedent, being able to just declare war whenever you want. Sovereignty inside the Western system is provisional. Property exists only until it's needed. Law applies until it doesn't. And the point that they make down at the bottom is what we are witnessing is not dominance, it is exposure. An exhausted empire reverting to ultimatums. Ultimata would be the right form, because persuasion no longer works, law no longer convinces, and fear no longer freezes the room. Blockades do not restore a failing order. They announce that the order has already died. Well, we'll see. We'll see, but the escalation clearly is we are now on what the guys in the Duran like to call the escalation escalator, meaning that this is only going to go from bad to worse. Obviously, this is all terrible, but again, what I want to talk about today is the spiritual degradation, the moral rot within the Republican Party, and the manifestations we're seeing here and elsewhere and everywhere. Last Monday on my show, we did a show with Amber Harris, and I mentioned this story at the top. The story about Rob Reiner's death and Trump's reaction to it, which everybody's heard about by now. I talked about the callousness of Trump's comments. I made the point that his remarks were politically horrendous, on top of also being sociopathic. And by the way, to just be clear, I know Rob Reiner was that he did worse than disparage Trump. I understand this. He organized a campaign of lies against Trump. He was deeply involved in the deep state frame up against Trump for the false accusations, Russian collusion, blackmail, all that stuff. Even still, Trump's remarks were inexcusable. Even still, they made him look bad. They hurt his image. They hurt all of our image, which is why so many of us were upset about it and talking about it, because frankly, he made all of us look awful. And that's because of what he said about Reiner, but also what he made he made his death all about himself. How weird is that? So yeah, his remarks are sociopathic, politically awful, and to extend that point, it's not just that the deep state is controlling Trump. That was the prevailing narrative we had in his whole first term. He's trying to do all these great things, but the deep state is sabotaging him. Trump's not just being outwitted. He's so full of hubris. He thinks that bad mouthing a dead man is just harmless. He's untouchable. But that also goes to the inescapable fact that Trump is a psychopath. And well, that was last Monday's news. Now, later this week, just more recently this week, Trump gave a prime time address, which is not something presidents get to do every single day or every single month. Even these are unusual, but Trump gave one, and let's watch it here. Let me put it up on the screen here. Here, let's listen to it for a moment here.
Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans.
Yep.
Because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, more than 50% of whom men. We had men playing in women's sports. We had the worst trade deal, more positive change to Washington in a landslide, winning the popular vote. X-Trade really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. Corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage. They indoctrinated your children they caused war, they caused mayhem, they caused a horror this nation run, who make this nation work. Than border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country. I feel he was always blaming Congress and everyone. He turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. Did that all by ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it because we have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals after rebuilding the United States, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza.
All right, you guys get the idea. It's like 20 minutes of that. 20 minutes of going between making excuses and bragging. Not one word about Venezuela, which, probably most people thought was what they were tuning in to hear about, is why we're going into this new war. No, not a word about that. Just literally a Trump rally without the audience and truncated down to just the bare bones of it. And this is a nice summary from Matt Walsh, who is a big Trump supporter even now. That was perhaps the most pointless primetime presidential address ever delivered in American history. Bingo. Yeah, that is what it was. It was absolutely pointless. This was Trump's opportunity to talk to the American people. Like, okay, I don't know if you guys watch TV. I don't, but this is an address that networks interrupted their regularly scheduled programming to go to Trump giving the speech, which is, when for a president to use this privilege, it's to give people something they really need to hear. And maybe if Trump was a different person, he would have thought of many important things he could have said to the American people. He could have talked about how federal district judges are willfully sabotaging the will of the American people as expressed on the 2024 election, and how we need to secure the border and that these activist judges should be reined in. He could have used the opportunity to really give Americans talking points, not just like this campaign stuff. You see this in debates constantly when people are talking about the economy. Every politician can throw out these statistics. Biden did the same crap too. Remember, the economy was awful, and he'd have his spokespeople come up and just say the economy's great. We've got these great numbers to post. Trump's doing the same exact thing. Oh, the prices are going down. It's incredible. And the big take, and again, the many things Trump could have talked about, to use that big bully pulpit, talk about the filibuster, get Republicans on board with ending the no, none of that stuff. It was basically, he just proved he had nothing really to say. Nothing to say about Venezuela, nothing to say about current events. And there's just this ongoing malaise that just comes out of everything. Remember Trump's great tagline? You're going to win so much and get tired of winning. Where is all this? Instead of this malaise is everywhere. We saw a lot of conflict on display the past few days at Amfest, the annual conference of Turning Point USA, which of course is the organization Charlie Kirk headed until his assassination a few months ago. Another thing Trump might have talked about, the radical left, the murderous rampages that go on from time to time, including, it appears, Brown University might have something to do with that too. By the way, speaking of Charlie Kirk, as an aside, the comedian Dave Chappelle apparently has a new show out where he whines about comparisons between Martin Luther King and Charlie Kirk, who Chappelle called some kind of internet personality. Well, obviously Charlie Kirk was no internet personality. He was murdered acting in the real world, being an effective debater and organizer in the real world. But Charlie Kirk and Martin Luther King do have something in common, which is that after they were assassinated, they lost any ability to control what people say about them. And unfortunately, that is one of the big tragedies in this whole thing, is that what we saw at this last conference was the fight going on privately and now publicly for the future of Turning Point USA. How contentious was this event more than ever before? You had Ben Shapiro get up calling for the excommunication of Tucker Carlson, and Tucker just destroyed him in response. By the way, as an aside, talking since I mentioned Ben Shapiro, this clip has been going around. I gotta put this one up for a second. Ben Shapiro apparently believes the good guy in It's a Wonderful Life was Mr. Potter. Here's the clip.
Now, also, Lionel Barrymore is correct. So on a financial level, the villain of this piece is actually the hero, because if Jimmy Stewart actually gets his way, all of Bedford Falls collapses in the subprime mortgage crisis. Basically, Jimmy Stewart keeps giving out loans without proper check.
Yeah, this is Ben Shapiro's mentality. Mr. Potter's the good guy. Yeah, sure. Anyway, so Ben Shapiro versus Tucker Carlson. A lot of people are raising the alarm about this infighting within the Republican Party or the conservative movement, whatever. Tucker Carlson versus Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens versus Tim Pool. Republicans need to stop the fighting so we don't lose next year. Well, who is setting the example here that's causing this fighting? No one's doing more to fracture the right than Donald Trump and his administration. He can't stop attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's retiring. And then there's also this general inconsiderate selfishness about Trump and everything he does, and it's rubbing off on people. Here's Jesse Waters. Let me find this clip here. Here we go. Jesse Waters talking about, this is on the stage at the America Fest last night, and here's one of those great the insider story about the Trump administration. So here's what Jesse Waters says here. Listen to this.
the size of the White House. We're having like Mexican food. He goes, Jesse, you want to see the rendition of the big, beautiful ballroom? I said, sure, let me see it. He rolls the whole thing out. And guys, I don't know if you know this, the ballroom is huge. Like, I said, Mr. President, the ballroom is 4 times the size of the White House. He said, Jesse, it's a monument. I'm building a monument to myself because no one else will.
That's not funny. That's awful. That is so bad. I mean, it already looks bad that Trump is building this ballroom, which nobody really cares about. Like in the real world, like all it's done is given Democrats talking points. Trump's got nothing better to do than worry about this ballroom of his. And now Jesse Wiles just comes out and says, yeah, Trump has said he's building this ballroom as a monument to himself because no one else will. Really? Nobody else will? All these people that come to the White House and lick your boots, the Saudis won't build the ballroom for you? Hey, Patty. Hey, Paula. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining me on this Sunday afternoon. Paula says, can't stand Ben. Stop supporting the Daily Wire after the Brett Cooper firing. Yeah, I canceled my Daily Wire subscription just because I couldn't. I love Matt Walsh. I cannot stand Ben Shapiro, and I can't stand the idea of giving him my money, so I had to cancel. But anyway, this is not about Ben Shapiro, though. I mean, there's contentiousness. There's this self-aggrandizement. There's there's also just downright negativity. It's this spiritual black hole. So this week at the White House, Mark Levin, we saw some of these clips earlier of Trump giving the Hanukkah speech. And so Mark Levin was there. He declared Trump was America's first Jewish president. Well, no, he's not a Jewish president. He's a Zionist president is what he is. Israel first. And the thing about Israel first is that it's not compatible with America first. If Trump truly loved America as much as he claimed, he wouldn't be spending all of this time working for Israel because it'd be obvious to him how insulting this is. You have a limited amount of time. And Trump said in that clip we just saw, he says, oh yeah, Sheldon Adelson comes and I'm supposed to give him only a couple minutes and he takes an hour and a half. Every single week, it's another story of Trump doing things in service to Israel. So 2 days ago, this is U.S. Central Command post this on X. U.S. and Jordanian forces struck 70-plus ISIS targets in Syria with 100-plus precision munitions. Peace through strength. Literally, that's what U.S. Central Command post. Peace through strength. Okay, first off, how did we have 70-plus known ISIS targets to strike in Syria? Were we just saving them for a rainy day? Like, that's not how this works in the military. If you have a target, you have to strike it before it's no longer available to you because they move around, they evade detection, they have counterintelligence. We just have 70 known targets laying around. Was al-Jilani giving us this targeting information? How do we know they weren't just bombing innocent Christian families like all those others that al-Jilani murdered? Did the ISIS guy fighting ISIS just call up his buddies? Hey, where are you? Here's your coordinates, Mr. President. But as Trump just said in that video we saw at the top, the Golan Heights worth trillions of dollars, which are now no longer probably on the map of Syria. Trump just said, yeah, I gave the Golan Heights to Israel. And there's another clip just came out this week. I don't have it queued up, but Trump was asked why our soldiers are in Syria. A reporter asked him that this week. Oh, because, a couple of them got killed. And a reporter asked Trump, why are our soldiers in Syria? And Trump's answer, literally is what Trump says. He says, we got rid of Assad. Which A, doesn't answer the question, but B, he just admitted it was an American operation. So there's that. Here's what Pete Hegseth posted about the whole matter. Let me scroll up. Here we go. Earlier today, U.S. forces commenced Operation Hawkeye Strike in Syria to eliminate ISIS fighters' infrastructure and weapon sites in direct response to the attack on U.S. forces that occurred on December 13th in Palmyra, Syria. This is not the beginning of a war. It is a declaration of vengeance. The United States of America, under President Trump's leadership, will never hesitate and never relent to defend our people. As we said directly following the savage attack, if you target Americans anywhere in the world, you'll spend the rest of your brief, anxious life knowing the United States will hunt you, find you, and ruthlessly kill you. Today, we hunted and killed a lot of our enemies, lots of them, and we will continue. Again, the bloodlust here, and do you really believe that the exact people who carried out that terror attack are the people that were bombed? Because I tell you, I'm not convinced of that at all. I'm sorry, I'm just not a big believer in the depth of the intelligence we're getting from Syria right now. If anything, I think it's probably just coming from Israel. Hey, whoever Israel wants us to target, that's who we're going to hit. Barry Altman says, truthfully, I don't care about the enemies of Israel. I'm glad to see them go. Well, it's not that I care about them. It's that I care what my tax dollars are paying for. Yeah, I don't particularly care what happens to other people in the world. I do care when my taxpayer dollars are being spent on mass murder, potentially of innocent people, potentially of Christian people. I don't think putting an Islamic Al-Qaeda terrorist mastermind in charge of Syria was a good use of our money. Anyway. But there's more. I mean, you might have thought that's all Trump's done for Israel this week. No. Trump's done very much more, including appointing a new anti-Semitism czar at the State Department. Let's hear how Yehuda Kaplan describes this new role he has.
And is sending a very strong message. Think about it. Ironically, I get off a plane. I am the president's representative, and I am walking off with a yarmulke, and I have kosher food, and embassies will have kosher food. It is a game changer. The appointment is a game changer. And it's not about history. It's about education. And how do we educate? Indonesia has 350 million Muslims living in the country. How do we change their textbooks?
This is what your tax dollars are paying for. How do we change the textbooks in Indonesia?
How do we hold the people in Gaza accountable
How do we hold the people in Gaza accountable? Well, we I don't know, we're carrying out a genocide in Gaza. Is that not enough? The mass butchery of women and children is not good enough. Does that send them a good enough message? You want to do more? What more do you want to do, buddy?
America is paying for UN textbooks, and supposedly the changes are made. Why are those textbooks not being used, and why are they using their old textbooks? We have to teach people it's not okay to educate your kids to be a martyr.
Yeah, we hate martyrs. Fuck martyrs.
Okay? And we have to hold those countries accountable. How do we battle anti-Semitism on the internet? How are we doing better on algorithms? What companies can we work with? We are going to have a whole division within the office of the Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism.
Yeah, so much for that free speech stuff. So much for that separation of church and state stuff. Yeah, they're just openly saying the State Department's going to be policing speech on the internet. I thought we were opposed to that.
That is going to work on technology and working with the greatest leaders in technology, many of whom are Jewish and have offered their assistance. The office is going to be revamped entirely to be one of the highest profile offices in the State Department.
You got that? The highest profile office in the State Department. Top priority. Top priority is policing speech on the internet and across the globe on behalf of Israel.
Because that's what the secretary wants and that's what the president wants. So we are going to have a very, very strong mandate on education, on protecting people, and how are we able to make a huge difference in combating what goes on.
Well, there you go. That's the clip. Yeah. That's the State Department's top priority. It's not you guys. It's what can we do to combat anti-Semitism, which again, remember, to this administration, anti-Semitism means questioning Israel. So there's that. In other news, by the way, about a day or so ago, another commercial air cargo plane arrived in Poland from the United States of America with another more than 80 tons of American military supplies to go to the Ukrainian armed forces. While that whole farce of negotiations continues to play out endlessly. Who is advising Trump? Well, speaking of that, Susie Wiles is set to leave. Susie Wiles has given 11 interviews with Vanity Fair magazine. 11 interviews. You guys probably saw some of the comments about that. Literally, like the entire cabinet had to rush online to say how much they love Susie Wiles and how her remarks were taken out of context. At no point does anybody say anything that the Vanity Fair article reported was false. Taken out of context. So she says, Trump has an alcoholic's personality. What context makes that not look bad? Which a lot of people are wondering, okay, you got ambushed for one interview. How is Susie Wiles, White House Chief of Staff, most high-pressure job on planet Earth, sitting down to do 11 interviews with Vanity Fair magazine? Didn't most of you guys think, wow, what an absolute moron? What on earth got into Susie Wiles' head that she would give 11 interviews to Vanity Fair magazine, leading to, imagine this, a hit piece? How in the world did Susie Wiles not expect there would be a hit piece? Well, I'll tell you why. Susie Wiles is not a complete moron. There's a particular reason why Susie Wiles gave this interview. She's leaving. She's leaving, and this is a way to get a lot more money in your upcoming book deal. I got all kinds of dirt. Who wants me? Who wants that book deal? Of course, that's what that means. So, yeah. Wow, who would have ever thought? Who would have ever thought that Vanity Fair would run a hit piece? Well, Susie Wiles is now, this isn't her first rodeo. She knew what she was doing. Also leaving, by the way, Dan Bongino. Wow, what an illustrious career he'd had at the FBI. I'm sure he'll go back to being a highly successful podcaster. No one will ever question his credibility now that he's broken everything he promised he would do when he got to Washington. If you're expecting all kinds of tell-all disclosures from Dan Bongino, forget it, by the way. So, yeah, that happened. And of course, we have, by the way, we have at least one happy story for this week. Actually, the other thing I was going to talk about was Vivek Ramaswamy and his brilliant speech at America Fest. But maybe before I get to that, we should at least kind of close the book on this topic of this spiritual rot that's happening here. And I think I've laid out a pretty good case that something is deeply, deeply wrong with this administration, and it's at the very top. And what's happening is that it's infecting the whole conservative movement. Because, first off, because we all have, maybe not every single one of us, obviously I don't, but most people, most ordinary people, when you're psychologically invested in something, you can't let it go. And, we all, including me, spent the whole last year and beyond that talking about what an incredible President Trump would be in his second term. We made it happen. And in our heart of hearts, we all thought this was going to be different, this second term compared to the first. Trump survived an assassination, for crying out loud. Surely that would have awakened his spirituality and, realizing that in his precious time on earth, he needs to make an incredible difference. And what we have instead is a guy who's spending his time building monuments to himself because nobody else will. And when we hear that, as Jesse Waters proved when he told this to the crowd at America Fest, we're like, yeah, build that monument to yourself. So much for all that America First stuff. So much for the American people. And then Trump gives this primetime address because he's starting to realize his poll numbers aren't so good and Americans care about the economy. And all year long, they've been waiting for him to do something for us, to care about us. And instead it's Israel, 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 war, 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 Ukraine, Ukraine, Israel, Israel. Let's attack Venezuela. So gets up and gives a speech, talks about how great the economy is. Well, like I said, Biden tried that same play. You think the economy is not that great? It's because you're stupid. The economy is great for everybody else. What's your problem? The Americans don't buy that. And it's not going to work. Anyway, so let's talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. And I think I've got the I do have the video. Hold on. Let me pull this up here. This is the clip. Hold on, let me remove this one. Okay. There we go. Make this bigger. Here is.
You have a heritage America about criticizing the woke left. Now let me get to the harder part. There's a different vision of American identity that's emergent.
Hold on, let me try to make this full screen. What's the full screen button? Oh, this is the full. Oh, it is full screen. Okay, sorry. Here we go.
About criticizing the woke left. Now let me get to the harder part. There's a different vision of American identity that's emergent in certain corridors of the online right. And it says that your identity as an American is based on your lineage. That how long you have been in the country, your lineage and your genetics tied to the blood and soil of the country determines how American you are. It is the idea of a heritage American that says the truest form of an American is somebody who is a descendant of the American Revolution period or before. And I will tell you, this idea of the heritage American, we ought to have this discussion.
It's all a straw man argument, by the way.
I think the idea of a heritage American is about as loony as anything the woke left has actually put up. There is no American who is more American than somebody else. The American quality, it's not like the left, they believe in this non-binary stuff. There's no non-binary American. It is binary. Either you're an American or you're not. And you think about it, I could prove this to you. Thank you. I'll take some applause on that.
Begging for applause, are you?
If you really believe in this idea, think about where it leads you. Leads you to believe that Donald Trump is less of an American than Joe Biden because Donald Trump's mother was an immigrant and his grandfather was an immigrant. That doesn't make any sense.
Nobody has ever suggested that.
Somehow Bernie Sanders is more of an American than Senator Bernie Moreno from my home state, an America First patriot, because Bernie Moreno was a naturalized citizen from Colombia. It makes you think that Marco Rubio, our great Secretary of State, is somehow less of an American than Elizabeth Warren because she's a Native American, which we all know, right? Doesn't make any sense. It's loony. It's crazy talk. It makes you believe that somehow I am less of an American.
It's actually a horrible example he just gave because Marco Rubio is one who's like obsessed with South America. But anyway, I'll let this clip play out. It's almost over.
American than the transgender criminal who assassinated Charlie Kirk. We refuse to accept that. The idea that a heritage American is any more American than another American is un-American at its core. And I will fight to the very end for that because that's what it means to be an American. We believe in ideals. That is who we are.
I'm calling it right now. The Democrats are going to win the governor of Ohio next year. Flat out, hands down. I mean, Vivek was already having an uphill battle to start with, but after that performance, my God. And first off, before we get into the content of what Vivek just said, there's the more fundamental thing, which is that Vivek has left the campaign trail, left his home state of Ohio, where he should be campaigning nonstop until Election Day, to go to America Fest to browbeat the audience there. There have been a lot of reactions to this speech. Matt Walsh had a whole lengthy comment on his recent episode about this. And, you know, the comment section, of course, from pretty much every single tweet about that speech is absolutely horrific. But, you know, again, before we really get into the content of what Vivek just said, let's just put this in perspective here. So a couple of years ago, maybe four years ago now, there were two candidates for Congress in my congressional district, Whitney Williams and Hema Kolana Giretti. That's not a middle name and a last name. That's not a maiden name. That's all her last name. 6 syllables, Kolana Giretti. And all else aside, because it's a Republican primary, it's a Democrat district, so not a lot of money is involved. But Whitney Williams did no campaigning whatsoever, and HEMA actually tried to win the election. In fact, when Whitney Williams, I think she gave like one or two interviews, she just said, "I'm not really a Republican. I'm not really conservative." Nevertheless, she got the big majority of the votes in the primary because, sorry, it's just a fact that voters not knowing much about a person, all they know about the person is what their name is, and more voters went with Whitney Williams than with Hema Kalama-Reddy. That's already the implicit bias of the electorate because and I'm not disparaging the voters. Like, voters do tend to prefer Americans because, contrary to what Vivek says, we do actually have a national culture, and sometimes immigrants take some time to catch on to it, as Vivek clearly does. But the last thing anybody, if you were if that was Ben Shapiro giving that lecture, which he might as well have been, that'd be one thing. I wouldn't agree with it, but, whatever. It's an academic question, I guess. Whether there's a heritage American. But when you're a candidate, you are out of your mind if you are trying to score intellectual points with this audience. And because what was Vivek trying to do here other than trying to lose votes? I can't even imagine, because all he managed to do is to lose votes. Patty asks, does Vivek have a primary challenger? I don't think a serious one. There's a guy who just entered the race. His last name is Putsch. He seems like he's a minor candidate. I'm sure he is. But again, given what I've just said about how the electorate looks at things, I think a big underdog still has a very strong chance of knocking Vivek out in a primary. But here's the thing. Already the entire Republican Party of Ohio is behind Vivek. The field has been cleared. The Trump White House said, Vivek's our guy, you support him. And they all said, yes, sir. Well, guess what? We're going to lose the governor's race now. We might as well have just forfeited that race. How many millions of dollars are going to be flushed on and the other thing about this, by the way, the other thing about the primary challenger, Vivek is very wealthy. He is what they call a self-funder. So if you're wondering why all of the Republicans in Ohio, all the Republican Party establishment aren't going to ditch Vivek as soon as they have anybody else credible to run, because they're paid. because he pays them, that's why. And it'll be curious to see who, if anybody, in Ohio. I'm not going to really follow because it's Ohio. I don't care about Ohio, but I'd be curious to see if any real challenger emerges. We'll see. Barry says this is a very nuanced argument, and no, it isn't binary at all. I like Vivek minus that position. He's self-serving, but it's also nuanced. Yeah, I like Vivek on some things. He's horrible on H-1Bs, and he's horrible on this. And he's also just, again, a straight up stupid. It's not a smart campaigner to say these things. Now, by the way, here is these are my immigration papers. You see, I take them seriously. That's 1822. It looks like when Hyacinth D'Angeli came over. You see, he had to renounce his loyalty to the King of France as a Corsican immigrant. There you go. You see, he had to have a sponsor saying that he was a man of good character, et cetera, et cetera. And there's the little oath there. I, Hyacinth D'Angeli. Hyacinto D'Angeli. Do swear that the contents of my petition are true, that I will support the Constitution of the United States. And I now renounce and relinquish any title or order of nobility to which I am now or hereafter may be entitled. And I do absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, whatever, and particularly to the King of France, of whom I was before a subject sworn in open court this 6th day of May, AD 1826. And there is a signature of Hyacinto D'Angeli right there. Now, according to Vivek, that makes me not a heritage American, because apparently, according to Vivek, only going back, you have to at least go back to the Revolutionary War to be a real heritage American. But here's the thing, there is, yes, let's call it a spectrum of assimilation. And yes, there are people who came to America from Ireland as recently as 100 years ago who are 100% American today, you know, and even people more recently than that. The problem is when you have the Vivek Ramaswamy comes up and then just says, yeah, we need to have more H-1B visas because Americans are too stupid to do these jobs. Yeah, that's a problem. And I forget which one it was, but a long time ago, I read Ann Coulter had a hilarious comment about, she wrote a whole column just about Vivek. But never mind that. The thing is, like I said, Vivek's cooked. And the fact that he is so politically inept that he went to Amfest to give this speech, because he like, this was just burning in his chest. Like, he, of all the things to talk about, that's the thing he wanted to really try to score points on, was to you know, show the audience how smart he is. Like, voters love being talked down to, don't we? Very, very, very foolish. Brian says, you forgot Candace Owens telling Ben Shapiro to F himself. I didn't know Candace was actually at America Fest. I thought she just said that online. But yeah, that was funny. There was who was it? It wasn't Candace, but someone made a funny comment about how the fact that Ben Shapiro considers himself the arbiter of who should and should not be in the conservative movement shows that he overestimates what his own position in this thing is. Maybe that was Candace, or I don't remember who posted that, but whatever. Julia Collins says, hard to pardon January 6ers update. Emily Hernandez and Shane Woods got 10 to 15 years in prison for lethal DUIs. Andrew Johnson tried sexual abuse case of 11-year-old. I don't know who these people are or what this means. And it's not even on topic, so I don't know why I even bothered reading that. But there you go. Oh, Megyn Kelly, that was it. Thank you, Patty. Yes, Megyn Kelly said that. Yeah. Anyway, where were we? All right, we have some good news, and then I've also got a happy story from something outside the conservative universe in general. But the happy story, there is some good in the world, which of course is far, far away from, well, not entirely actually. Jury quickly convicts judge who helped illegal migrant escape ICE. Remember this judge? You have Judge Hannah Dugan, who now faces up to 5 years in jail, convicted of the felony for actually trying to help an illegal migrant out of a courtroom escaping from ICE. If only more judges face real penalties for violating the Constitution. But the fact is, every single one time that something like this happens, it absolutely discourages the left from trying the same exact thing. And if just one judge was thrown off the bench for willfully and deliberately sabotaging the Constitution in order to block the Trump administration's immigration policy, this whole thing would be brought to an end. Unfortunately, with Trump doing so many illegal things on the foreign policy front, it makes it difficult to get the judges to the Supreme Court to do the right thing when it comes to reining in the judges that are on the wrong side of things. So very frustrating. Anyway, that's the one story. Now, the other story I want to talk about is Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, spent the better part of a decade, I think, in prison, mostly in even solitary confinement, for the crime of reporting the news, doing outstanding journalism. He has now filed a criminal complaint against the Nobel Foundation. This is hilarious. A criminal complaint accusing 30 individuals associated with the Nobel Foundation, including its leadership, of committing serious crimes, including the crime of gross misappropriation of funds, facilitation of war crimes, and crimes against humanity, and financing the crime of aggression. The complaint says that Alfred Nobel's 1895 will explicitly mandates that the Peace Prize go to the individual who, during the preceding year, conferred the greatest benefit to humankind by doing the most or best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of peace congresses. Assange argued that the political decision of the Norwegian Selection Committee does not suspend the fiduciary duty of the Swedish funds administrators. Any disbursement according to this, because they picked that warmongering lunatic Maria Machado to win the Nobel Peace Prize so as to help facilitate her grandstanding to encourage the destruction of her own country. So the complaint submitted simultaneously to the Swedish Economic Crime Authority and the Swedish War Crimes Unit states that the suspects, including Nobel Foundation chair Astrid Soderberg Whitting and executive director Hannah Stjarn, I probably didn't pronounce it right, converted an instrument of peace into an instrument of war through suspected serious criminality, including breach of trust, facilitation of war crimes. And Assange noted that the members of the Nobel Foundation have previously exercised their supervisory authority over the prizes and their disbursements by withholding literature prize disbursements in 2018. Failure to interfere here, despite U.S. war crimes off the Venezuelan coast and Machado's key role in furthering aggression, encouraged criminal liability. And then Assange said, Alfred Nobel's endowment for peace cannot be spent on the promotion of war. The accused have concrete legal obligations because they are tasked with ensuring the fulfillment of the intended purpose of Alfred Nobel's will, that is to end wars and war crimes and not to enable them. First off, very, very clever. Probably won't win in court because, courts, but still an absolutely hilarious way to tag the Nobel Peace Prize as being a complete fraud and a failure. And frankly, much smarter than the way Trump went about trying to get the Nobel Peace Prize because he was mad Obama got it. Just throw it back in their faces. They're a fake peace prize, and they've just proven it. So that was Julian Assange. Despite already having his life ruined by government tyranny, still not afraid to speak out, still fighting for peace against the tyranny of the day, which in this case is, again, the agitation for war with Venezuela, which has not yet exploded, but still, I think we are on that path, and it's going to be a disaster. So I think I covered everything I want to talk about today. Again, I'm sorry that I have to say so many things are not looking good for us. But I will maintain my commitment to going where the truth takes us. And frankly, I want to see the movement get out of this. And I think and we all should, if we want Trump to succeed, for America, that is, not for himself, not for Israel, but for our country, for posterity, for history. If Trump wants people to actually build monuments to him, so he doesn't have to build them himself, maybe he should change his behavior. Who knows? Maybe Susie Wiles being gone will help with that in some way. We'll see. But probably not, because he's still a complete mess with Marco Rubio and frankly half his cabinet. So, but maybe, just maybe, when more patriots, speak out. I mean, remember, Susie Wiles is the one who told Trump, hey, don't worry about the midterms, we got this. Well, what's going to happen when Susie Wiles walks out and starts signing book deals? Well, maybe then Trump will realize he got played. But in the meantime, we can only hope that at some point Trump goes back to his roots and realizes that it was America first that was popular. That was what people voted for. We voted for Trump the patriot. We voted for Trump the America first patriot. We voted for Trump, whose number one target was the radical left in America. And he spent the entire past year going after everybody but them. Going after the Syrians, going after the Palestinians, going after the Venezuelans, going after the Russians. Oh, yeah, peace deal. Yeah, right. As day after day after day, our military provides intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance information to the Ukrainians, and of course, weapons and money. Patty asks, do we know why DeSantis fired Susie Wiles? I certainly don't. Barnes has said that because DeSantis got wise to her ways and didn't trust her. But I don't know. Who knows? Barry says, Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas to you, Barry, and to Patty, and to Paul, and to everybody else watching. I'm sure we'll have more people watching belatedly because this is not our normal time. But I need to get a little bit of rest and then got to hit the road. So to everybody, have a Merry Christmas, safe travels. Maybe I will do something, some other stream later this week. We shall see, but I'll be out of town until I think Friday. So probably not. Hopefully we all have a peaceful holiday with our family, and it's a good time to rest and reflect and prepare for the battles to come, which there will be in 2026, one way or the other, and hopefully less so with ourselves and more so with the Democrats. But until then, as always, guys, thanks for all that you do for liberty. Until then, peace.